Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 2020 housing market update. As you guys know who watch my videos often, this is a monthly thing that comes out. There's a report that comes out every single month. About what is going on um, in the housing market space and what the predictions for the new year and the analysis and all that from the experts. I don't consider myself an expert in real estate. I learn something new every single day about real estate, about how everything works. But I enjoy these reports because not only do they educate me, but at the same time that they're educating me, I can then translate it to you guys so that you better understand the housing market as well. If you're watching right now, give me a thumbs up, like this video. Apparently something with YouTube algorithms and everything, they really like when you get thumbs up. So I would like to really get some thumbs up. So if you're here watching this live, this is a live stream. This is not going to be a pre-recorded video. I do a lot of those, but this is a live one that I do each and every month as I go through the analysis. I go over it with all of you. If you have any questions, feel free to post them here in the chat room. Again, if you're watching live, and if you have any questions after the video, you can place them in the comments or you can email me directly. So this, again, is the November 2020 Housing Market Report. And the first thing we look at here is the Housing Market Recovery Index. And back before the pandemic hit, before it became a big thing, our housing market recovery index sat at 106.5. So there are four components that go into that number. It's demand, supply, price, and time on the market. And the baseline is 100. So prior to the pandemic, we had a housing market recovery index of 106.5, and during the time of the pandemic, that bottomed out at 83.1. 83.1, meaning housing is not recovering at all. It's bad times for housing, and that was right at the very beginning of May. Since that time, we have peaked up to where we are today, which is 112.8, 112.8. So we are now in the housing market recovery index, we are now above where we were pre-pandemic. We're now in post-pandemic. We are now higher than we were pre-pandemic. And what they say about this is buyers and sellers quickly jumped back into the market this week after taking a break during election week. So during election week, it seems to be common now. It seems to be a common theme that every election cycle, especially when you're electing a presidential candidate, housing market everybody kind of steps back. And they just want to see what happens. I guess it may be like a rush time as well, because normally a Tuesday, people would be working on Tuesdays, but they kind of have to take a break and step back, and they go and vote, and then they watch and they try to see who wins. And it's just it's kind of a stressful week for some people. So according to Realtor.com's weekly housing report for the week that ended November 14th, so buyers and sellers quickly jumped back into the market this week after taking a break during election week. And we talk about it every month, and this month is the same, is similar in fashion, and that is about the number of mortgages and active forbearance. So this was a big concern. um, I understand from reading the news that it's a huge concern in places like Portland, Oregon, places like Seattle, Washington, New York City. The number of homes or the number of mortgages that are in active forbearance, meaning that they needed a break from paying their mortgage because of economic circumstances. Um, we had a peak back at the end of May, where 4.76 million mortgages were in active forbearance. 4.76 million. That's 4.76 million families, or 4.6 million homeowners that were in active forbearance. They needed to step back and have time to pay their mortgage. That number has fallen dramatically. It is now 2.79 million. Still too many. Still a lot of people that if they were to lose their home, that could be very devastating. And it would be very devastating to that family, to that homeowner. But it could be potentially very hurtful to the economy as well, at 2.79 million. But the bright side is that that number continues to fall each month, and that is what's good. Last month, around this same time, we were looking at 2.97 million. So being at 2.79, fallen just about 200,000 from the previous month, and we hope that that number continues to fall and that we don't have anywhere near millions of people who potentially are losing their homes. Looking at the numbers, this is from the Mortgage Bankers Association. Upon exit from the forbearance plan, 54.6% of those individuals said that they are going to pay their mortgage in full. 30.7% said they were going to work out a repayment plan. Those two are the best things that those individuals can do. So you're looking at roughly about 89%, almost 90% of people who are in this forbearance are planning to either pay in full or work out a payment plan. And then 14.7% are still in trouble. So that's a scary part. You're looking at 1.9% said repayment plan short sales, which means they're selling their home for less than what they owe on it, or deed in lieu. 12.8% said no loss mitigation plan. 6.8% said modification. 23.9% loan deferral. 16.9% past due payments were brought current, which is good. And then 7.1% loan paid off already. So that's good to hear in that. 5 steps to ask for mortgage forbearance. Maybe you are in need of this. If you are in trouble with the shutting down of places and opening up and shutting down and opening up, it's gotten everything discombobulated. If you have lost your job for whatever reason, there are 5 steps you need to take. The first is find the contact information for your servicer. So whoever services your mortgage, your lender may be the servicer, or whoever the lender sold your mortgage to, you need to contact them. You need to call your servicer and explain the situation. and use the number that comes on your mortgage statements so that you avoid scams, because there are scams out there. Don't fall victim to that. Call the number that is on your mortgage statement. Ask if you are eligible for protection under the CARES Act. So the CARES Act protects homeowners that have federally backed loans such as FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie Mae, or Freddie Mac loans. You may be eligible under the CARES Act. And ask what happens when your forbearance period ends. And here's some questions you can ask. What happens to the payments I miss? What are my repayment options? When will repayment be due? And are there any fees? And finally, ask your service provider to provide the agreement in writing and check to make sure it matches what you discussed with them. And last but not least, do not wait. Forbearance is not automatic. It must be requested. So use those steps to make sure if you are in that situation, if you are a homeowner in that situation where you need protection, make sure you get it. That's why it's there. That's why Congress passed it, so that we would not see the huge amount of mortgage foreclosures and everything that we may see if Congress didn't act. I talked about this a little while ago. I did an actual video on it. Are prices going up too fast? So housing prices were notably tepid, to say very strong, in September. The National Composite Index, or NCI, gained 7% relative to its level a year ago. 3 monthly readings since June of this year have all shown accelerating growth in home prices, and September's results are quite strong. That was from Craig Lazzara. He's the managing director at S&P Dow Jones Indices. So housing prices are very strong coming out of September and into November. And the compound annual home price appreciation rate since 1991 is 3.8%, and since 2012 is 6.1%. So U.S. existing home median sales prices has been increasing. It has been increasing every single year since 2000. There has not been a decrease whatsoever in U.S. existing home median sales prices since 2000. It has been a steady kind of increase. The U.S. existing home median sales price, actual versus historic appreciation, you have seen a rise and fall. So 2006, it peaked out at about the $220,000 range, and then it dropped down. And this is where people got in trouble. As I stated in my other video previously, people got in trouble because they were taking out an adjustable rate mortgage. Those are mortgages that can adjust with the interest rates. And I never recommend those, because while the interest rate on those are better in the beginning, they can increase and they do adjust. So people were taking out adjustable rate mortgages when the mortgage rate was low. And then after 5 years, the mortgage rate went up, and so did theirs, which meant their payment increased dramatically too. And then when the bottom fell out of this housing market and prices just fell through the floor, you had rates adjusting again and again and again. And it was bad. It was really bad for people who had bought their house. Maybe it wasn't at the very high, but they bought their home here, their home went up to here, and then all of a sudden now their home is down here in price. It made for very, very bad times for homeowners. So today we see home prices above the median home price being above what it was back in that 2006 range. but we don't see the other factors that were involved, same as back then in 2006. Inventory is completely different than it was back in 2006. Back in 2006, we had a steady stream of inventory. Today, we do not. We don't have the inventory at all. It's very, very low. And Lawrence Yun, I read this quote on my previous video today, but he says, quote, "Such a frenzy of activity is reminiscent of 2006, and it raises questions about a bubble and the potential for a painful crash. The answer, however, is there's no comparison. Back in 2006, dubious adjustable rate mortgages taxed many buyers, what I just talked about. Some loans didn't even require income documentation. Today, buyers are taking out 30-year fixed rate mortgages. And 14 years ago, there were 3.8 million homes listed for sale, and home builders were putting an additional 2 million new units on board. Now inventory is only 1.5 million homes, and home builders are underproducing relative to historical averages. So big news. Apparently it was on CNN Business. Americans' mortgage debt soars to a record $10 trillion. Mortgage balances are the largest component of household debt and rose by $85 billion in the third quarter and sat at $9.86 trillion on September 30th. Mortgage originations, which include refinances, were at $1.06 trillion, and that is the second highest volume in the history of the series and second only to the historic refinance boom in 2003, said the Federal Reserve. So it's interesting. It turns out different, but you have to really look at it. A homeowner's home is normally their most valuable asset. It's their most valuable commodity. It's an investment for most people. It increases your net worth. So the total household debt service ratio for mortgages as a percentage of disposable personal income back in 1980 was 4.38%. It had gone to 6.22% by 1991, had fallen a bit to 5.46 in 98, had peaked way high to 7.21% in 2007. That was when we were having the housing bubble. And today is at 3.72%. So the percentage of debt or the household debt compared to the disposable personal income is way low. It's 3.72%. So this is total quarterly required monthly payments divided by total quarterly disposable personal income. So for the most part, people are not spending a ton of money on their home or towards their mortgage payment. Let's look ahead, though. Above all, the 2021 outlook hinges on the course of the coronavirus. Both the recent virus surge and the election make government emergency relief more likely. Next year will also start to show whether two of the big pandemic shifts will endure, from services to goods and from in-office to remote work. Even small shifts in these trends, if permanent, could cause big changes in how businesses hire. You think about this. A lot of businesses that sent their employees into remote work have now had that going on for 8-9 months. They are going to start to see, I believe, that they don't need that big, tall building because they're not going to have all their staff in that big, tall building. Will they need to continue to pay rents or leases on the big, tall building when most of their employees are at home? That's a big question. Will that become permanent? And if it does become permanent, we will start to see maybe a generation where skyscrapers are not what they used to be. It used to be, you think about New York City, you built a huge skyscraper full of office buildings, and you had thousands of employees in that building all day, every day. But today, that's not as powerful of image. Some of the employees are now at home, or most of them are at home. Will that become permanent? 2021 may show us. Mortgage rates, my goodness. If you have not heard anything about mortgage rates, I don't know. You must be living under a rock somewhere. In 2016, quarter three, the rate was about 3.5%. It peaked up to 4.2% in 2017, but then fell. By the end of 2017, 2018, it peaked all the way to 4.8%, but then fell off. 2019, the peak was 2019, the peak was 4.4%, and it has fallen ever since. 2.71% was the mortgage rate this week. Absolutely amazing, stunningly low numbers. So this is just a little bit of it. I will speak more about it. Maybe later I'll do a shorter video of this. But I thank you all for watching. And if you have any thoughts, any questions, just let me know. I would appreciate hearing them. Have a great day.